Oh, hi. I'm your host, Kyle Brownrigg, and welcome to Best Actress, discussing Best Actress and Best Supporting Actress Oscar wins, who we feel should have won, and why.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much.
Best Actress in a Supporting Role. And the nominees are Judy Davis in Husbands and Wives, Joan Plowright in Enchanted April, Vanessa Redgraves in Howard's End, Miranda Richardson in Damage, Marisa Tomei in My Cousin Vinny. Oscar goes to Marisa Tomei in My Cousin Vinny.
Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Best Actress. Today we will be discussing 1993 Best Supporting Actress Oscar win Marisa Tomei, and I am joined by my guest Arianne Tong. She is a stand-up comedian, and she has a monthly podcast called Group Therapy on ISO Radio. Arianne, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much for having me, Kyle. I'm so pumped to do this. I really enjoyed the movies.
Now, if anybody is listening to this and they're like an audio nerd or something, and they're like, oh my God, like the audio is not up to par, you can suck a giant dick because we are in lockdown right now. And I'm literally sitting in a closet on a computer doing a conference call. And this is the best that you're going to get for now.
Yeah, 100%. They put the queers back in the closet for this one.
That's
This is
right.
not cool. It's not cool whatsoever. Very
It's a
homophobic and
bit
fire.
it's a bit regressive.
Yeah.
So I am so excited to talk about this particular episode just because Marisa Tomei winning this Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress, this was a famous what the fuck moment for Academy Award wins, and I'm really excited to talk about it just because the rumor was that the person that presented the award, Jack Palance, he actually said the
Mhm.
wrong name, and that
Yeah.
like haunted her career.
Yeah. It's like having like
So
a
I'm
permanent asterisk. Yeah, it's upsetting.
100%, and I don't know. I mean, okay, I'm just really excited to sort of talk about this just because I think that there are so many reasons why she why she won, why she could have won, why somebody voted for her, at how
Mhm.
she won. And I just I got I gotta say though, this was a very sort of interesting year because all of the nominated performances were very like thespian, proper, fancy acting, British high society, and then Marisa Tomei.
100%. There was totally different acting styles at play, and I really loved how Marissa Tomei became like a completely different character. I assume from like how she is in normal everyday life, but she
Yes.
seemed to like just transform herself. So like I really was into her entire performance, and I'm not sure if that's because we're millennials, and it was by far for me the most interesting movie to watch this entire this entire experience of watching those five movies. But there was like one definitely does not look like the others is what I
Yeah.
got from this.
Yeah. I could not agree with that more. I'm just gonna make a note here. I'm just gonna pause you for one
Mhm.
second. Could you actually just take the mic maybe like just like 3 inches away?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep. Cool.
That is okay, perfect. Wherever you that is absolutely perfect. Thank you so
Great.
much. So we don't need that was great. Okay, sorry, we're just gonna jump right back in.
Yeah, for sure.
And then jump back in 325. Great. Okay. And I could not agree with you more because every single one of those movies was what I would think would be typical Oscar bait in the early 1990s, where it was they almost read like plays.
Oh my god, yeah, they're like these prestige films, basically.
Yeah.
It was all very like in the same vein as you said before. Like I honestly had a hard time distinguishing when I was talking about them or like making notes about them. I was like, was that movie or the other movie? No, 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 no. That was
Right.
like especially how like Howard's End and Enchanted April
Yeah.
was kind of a it seemed like it was like this made by the same director almost, but yeah,
Totally.
it was very interesting to watch all of these movies in a row. And also what I found interesting was like uh the themes that ran through all of them, and sort of like the
Yeah.
time, right? Like they're
Absolutely.
I don't know whether it was just because like this award was like best supporting actress, so like they chose very like I guess female positive storylines to for these particular actresses, but it was there was a lot of like women being controlled by men type storylines that I found, and women trying to like,
Yep.
yeah, women trying to establish their personhood and individuality, but being sort of silenced by these very like domineering, strong men is what I got out of it. I don't know what you sort of noticed in your watch of all of these movies in a row.
Oh yeah, a lot of these movies are really rapey. I was like, oh, okay, that's rape.
Yes.
That's also rape.
Yes.
Oh my god, is that rape again? Weird. Like it's just, and then people are always complaining
Yeah.
about how like women are not being cast properly, and there's so much troubling with like roles for women out there. And you watch these movies, and you're like looking back, watching these movies, and you're like, oh yeah, like
Yeah.
yeah, like 100%.
Well, yeah. What was your like your what the fuck moment in watching these movies?
Oh my god. Okay. Well, first of all, I that's a really great jumping off point.
Yeah.
So let's just
Yeah.
jump right into the nominees because
Okay.
I have a what the fuck moment for all of them.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So this year, the nominees. So let's talk about Judy Davis in Husbands and Wives. So,
Mhm.
okay, this is one of those things where I have to separate the art from the artist because anytime that I see Woody Allen, I just think pedophile and daughter
So
wife and yeah, just gross. And again, this is another example where it's like that old man with these young women, and he's supposed to be like the love interest, and Sidney Pollack, like yum.
yeah.
Like all of these guys, like at least Liam Neeson, like he's a little cutie patootie, but like all of these gorgeous women with all of these really gross guys, it's like we could do better.
100%. 100.
Hollywood.
Yeah, I totally agree. I find it very distracting for the entire movie to think that Woody Harrelson. Oh my God, Woody Harrelson, Woody Allen. Uh, was that a Freudian? So I have no idea. Woody Allen.
Start a rumor.
You know, he yeah, am I to believe that of all the men in this movie, that he's the one that was able to remain faithful to his wife at least partially? Like, it's totally unbelievable to me. I feel like he writes these movies in order to kind of absolve himself of any wrongdoing in his personal life. I hate it. So that was a major distracting factor in this film for me. But in terms of Judy Davis and her performance, I definitely thought that she was like the cornerstone of this movie, and she was like kind of holding it together from beginning to end for me, because whenever anyone else came on screen, it was just kind of a I lost interest. So she definitely
Fair.
did like the lion's share of acting in that movie for me, at least.
I want to go back though to that thing that you said about Woody Allen. So basically, like him in this movie doing the right thing was fiction because that's the amazing performance was that
Yeah,
he was like, I'm a good person. And you're like, yeah, okay, give him the like award for acting because that's a lie.
yeah.
Um, and I do want to mention though that Jane Fonda was actually originally offered the role of
Crazy.
Sally, Judy Davis's character, but Jane Fonda wanted to take the character in a certain direction, and ultimately they had creative differences, and it didn't work out. But I'm so happy that Judy Davis was selected just because.
Mm,
But before I jump into just talking about her performance,
mhm.
I love Judy Davis because she plays Luella Parsons on Feud, and I have watched that show like a million times. And when I saw her in this, I was just like, oh my god, like I already love this, and I'm already obsessed with this. And I really just felt like Judy knocked it out of the park in this movie because she played, the wife being left for a younger version of herself, which really could have been like a really gross stereotype the way that she chose to interpret the role, but she played it with such integrity, but also a lot of honesty, because she did have her meltdowns, she did have her moments of weakness. And just when she was kind of not sure about how to get back into the dating world and stuff like that, she did it in a really sort of vulnerable but also like comedic and smart way. Like I just,
Yeah,
like you're
and
saying, couldn't take my eyes off of her.
yeah, and there was so many levels to her character, because it was like in the beginning I feel like she went through all the motions of a woman, like going back on the market, and then eventually getting back with her husband. Like she went through all of the emotions in that arc, and I believed her at each and every one of these moments. Like the first scene where she is announcing with her soon to be, like, I guess, ex-husband to the other couple that they were going to be splitting up. Like she was kind of like calm and serene there, and then you see like the progression of her becoming increasingly more angry, and like she just took you on like a range of emotions, and I feel like that was just her character's journey. And I feel like she knocked it out of the park. Like uh it was interesting to see what her character did. I definitely would not have left Liam Neeson for that piece of garbage that came back into her life. I would have left him and his philandering ass outside in the
Agreed.
cold, kicked him out of my house. How dare you bring your girlfriend, who you're massively upset with, to my house? Leave her in the driveway. Like, how is that not a red flag to you? How is that not a red flag? That's
100%.
that's not a person that you go back to enjoying everyday life with. I just found that increasingly disturbing. I guess it was like a through
Fair.
line for all the movies, where it was like these women going back to these like terrible men for the most part. And I just feel like, they like it was just not pleasant for me to watch. But it was like, I guess it's the 90s, it was a different time, it was like taboo to get divorced. I have no idea.
That is something that you do have to consider as well with these movies, is that it's like, oh yeah, this was like filmed in like 1992 and the
Yeah.
world was a different place. And just talking about how women talk about how there are a lack of great roles for women in film, watching back some of these movies, you're kind of like, yeah, like I understand like why that is, because some of these roles, it's like, are like really shitty to women,
Oh God, yeah.
and they're always like trapped in these abusive relationships, and they're supposed to just be like, oh, that husband of mine, and it's like, what the fuck, like. And
Yeah.
I really, I don't think that it's it's gotten better, but I don't think that it's where it should be in terms of equality, especially of the distribution of roles and women, how they're represented in film. But
Definitely.
I will say that what I loved about Judy Davis in this movie was that she played the character with such integrity, and not in like a sort of misogynistic stereotype that it could have gone to.
Hmm.
And honestly, if she would have won the Academy Award, I would have been like, yeah, like fair. I thought she did a really great job, because all of these nominees, all of them, they were so great in different ways, and
Yeah.
I loved Judy Davis in this. Um, and unless you have anything else to add, we could move on to our next nominee.
Yeah, I think that pretty much sums it up for her. I really do enjoy the fact that these movies, I guess, like, because 1992 was like the year of the woman, and it was like it sparked off like the whole like third wave of feminism thing that was going on. And
Mm.
I feel this through watching all of these movies, like I I agree with you that it's like it hadn't gone as far as it needed to go. But you can tell from all of these movies that that there was something happening in terms of women and like trying to establish themselves or like establish independence from men in some way. I think that was like a recurring theme, and I thought that was really interesting. In terms of like Judy Davis's character, I feel like not the choice I would have made to go back with him.
Right.
But
Yeah, of course.
yeah, it was, there was definitely something in the air. And even just the theme of like that whole movie, the husbands and wives,
Mhm.
divorce was like a, I guess like a taboo subject for the day. And I feel like she just portrayed a, a woman going through the motions and then coming back to her version of stability in the end. I thought that she did a great job.
I think that we've made some excellent points. Let's talk about Vanessa Redgrave in Howard's End. Okay, I am just
Mhm.
going to say this. I have never seen Howard's End. Emma Thompson deserved the Best Actress because she won Best Lead Actress that year.
Yeah.
Um, she deserved that. I loved her in this movie. I thought the way that she played the character was amazing. Vanessa Redgrave was certainly memorable. She certainly had presence.
Uh-huh.
Uh, I feel like this is gonna like upset a lot of like intense movie fans, but
Yeah.
like I really feel like Helena Bonham Carter should have been
Oh God,
nominated
yes. Hell
over
yeah.
Vanessa Redgrave.
Oh my
Her
God.
character, first of all, her character playing like this kind like aging
Hmm.
dying high society woman. She played it perfectly, but she basically did that exact same thing in 1978 in the movie Julia, which she had already previously won her Academy Award for. And it's like, we're not going to be rewarding her for like a very similar role, in my opinion. And
Hmm.
also, oh my God, every 5 seconds, she's like, you need to go to Howard's End. Have I mentioned Howard's End? Oh, what are you doing later? Would you like to go to Howard's End? Have I mentioned Howard's End 15,000 times? It's like, oh my God, bitch, we get it. Like, you love Howard's End. Like, so,
Fucking
I
love it.
understand it's a metaphor, but they're driving it forward a little too much. And like, it
Yeah.
won like best writing and stuff like that. And listen,
Oh
I
God.
understand. I understand that this at the time is like a high society, like,
Hmm.
it's very it's almost like that snobby movie critic that's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
you didn't like Howard's End? Huh, clearly you know nothing about films." Like just and he has like one, scarf fucking over his shoulder and he's just like, do you have a 1978 port available because I only drink 1978 or younger." And you're just like, "Oh my God, like watching a movie like this, like I wanted to kill myself."
Yeah.
So I'm sorry. I found this movie really boring. I loved Helena Bonham Carter's character. I thought it was a lot more interesting. And Vanessa Redgrave, if she would have won an Oscar for this film, I would have scratched my eyes out. I
Oh,
literally
100%.
feel like Emma Thompson deserved the Best Actress, but
Uh-huh.
everybody was saying that Vanessa Redgrave was on like the odds to win on this film. I I just I'm sorry. I don't see it. I'm
No.
sure that I'm not enlightened enough to understand, but this is the whole thing about this podcast that I want to make very clear to
Yeah.
anybody that's listening. I am not a movie expert. I just love to watch movies and I love to discuss, why somebody may have won over somebody else or something like
Yeah.
that. So maybe I'm just not sophisticated enough to understand it, but truly I thought Helena Bonham Carter was a lot more memorable for this and should have been nominated over Vanessa Redgrave.
Oh, 100%. And Vanessa Redgrave was only in the movie for about like, I don't know, like 5 or to 10 minutes even.
Yeah,
Helena
and
Bonham
she
Carter.
mentioned Howard's End a
How
thousand
is
times in
that?
those 5 minutes. Yeah, I know.
No, it was I thought that Helena Bonham Carter's like character was like, she was like a through line throughout the entire, she did
Yes.
more supporting. Like I don't understand how, like what the criteria is for best supporting actress. Like I feel like you have to have some sort of screen time. But I don't know. Like it was kind of like strange for me watching seeing the nominees that were selected and not seeing her listed on there. I was like, well, like
Have you seen this movie before?
I hadn't seen it before, but I was so shocked that it was like, what it was, like 2.5 hours long. I was like, this did not need to be 2.5 hours long. It was not.
Oh
It
my
was
God, I know.
so hard to watch, and like the whole beginning part was just kind of like so drawn out. Like it could have been a hot hour and a half or something. And the ending was so anticlimactic for me. I was like, this is not real life. I didn't wait all this time for this like lackluster, like warm temperature, like room temperature, like ending to happen. Like I was so let down.
I agree. It was like, wait, what? Like, because what was it at the end where Emma Thompson's character finds out that Anthony Hopkins like lied to her about her actually inheriting Howard's End, and then she was like, "Oh, what was all that business about?" And then he was like, "Oh, you were supposed to inherit this Howard's End estate, but I lied to you and manipulated you the entire time." And then she was like, "Oh, very well, jolly good." And then that was the. I was like, "What?"
We're just gonna gloss over that. We're just gonna gloss over that. That's why I was like, I was yelling at the screen at the end. I was like, you need to confront this. Like, we didn't get to this whole climax of the film. I thought that actually in the scene before, I thought that she had left him in the end. Big mistake that she didn't leave him. Like, huge mistake. Honestly, none of these women who in any of these movies should have stayed with their partners. Like, it was the most unhealthy thing.
Abusive, toxic.
Terrible. And honestly, the one through line that I have with this entire category in all the movies is that, like, you should not be with your partners. As soon as the men entered into the plot line, that's when it got messed up. So I feel like, you know, that's like the main moral I got from this story is just like, don't trust a man because they'll just make things more complicated. No offense to you.
No, I couldn't agree with that more. I agree. One thing that I will say though, did you catch that moment, because I can do math, where Anthony Hopkins admitted to having sex with a child? Was that, because remember when he was like, "Oh, I had an affair with this woman 10 years ago." Didn't she say she was like 20?
I did not catch that. But wow.
Okay,
it must have been a different time.
Yeah, maybe I'm wrong, and like maybe I missed that, but I'm pretty sure I was like, okay, again with the rapiness that's just going on in all these movies. So I'm sorry, but like, Vanessa Redgrave. I mean, I guess that's kind of a spoiler to the end of this episode, but unless my sentiments at the beginning of talking about this nominee, I do. Okay. So it's like there have been nominees in the past that have literally had 5 minutes of screen time and won an Academy Award. I know that Dame Judi Dench, she won for Shakespeare in Love, and she was only in the movie for like, I think like 8 minutes or 10 minutes or something like that.
Yeah.
But you know, she had presence and you remembered her, and every scene she was in, it was like, whoa. And when it came to Vanessa Redgrave, I really remembered her. I would say she was very memorable. She certainly had presence. She played a dying, dead, rich white woman pretty well. But to be honest with you, I feel like it just, I mean, at that time in history, wasn't she already a dying rich white woman? I don't know. It wasn't much of a stretch. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Just taking her own life experience to inform the character, I guess. That's too good. We're on the same page with that, though. I don't think that she, I don't think that it was an incredible performance by any means. I wasn't blown away. I
would agree. She acted it well. Like, absolutely, she acted it well. I don't know. I feel like I can just hear all the like film critics, their eyes just rolling right now. Like, oh, how gauche! You don't know what you're talking about. Whatever. Again, suck a dick.
This podcast is not for them. It's not for them.
It's absolutely. Yeah. I agree. Okay, so Vanessa Redgrave was our last nominee. Let's discuss Miranda Richardson in Damage. Now, she had actually won the BAFTA, and I think that she had the odds to win. Although I keep saying this because all of the nominees really, except for Marisa Tomei, everybody expected any one of those nominees to win. Miranda Richardson in Damage, it was one of those things where when you were watching the movie, it was kind of just like a, and like an ignorant wife having no idea that not ignorant, but like she, unbeknownst to her, her husband was cheating on her. She was just that supportive, loving mother. Nothing to like wow factor. But then in the end, when she has been beating herself over the loss of her son, and she is angry, and she just totally flips, and like
that scene at the end was so I think that's what got her the nomination for that
absolutely
category. That was some good acting that last 5 minutes of the film. But in terms of she was like a knowledgeable presence. I don't think her character was stupid at all. I think she had suspicions. In fact, at the beginning she immediately states like that she doesn't trust, what was her name, the mistress,
Juliette Binoche.
Juliette Binoche. Okay, so I sense that like the characters, like all throughout all of these movies, they have an opinion that is like totally disregarded by the men in these stories, and then I feel like at the end of the movie it's always like the men always make that own realization by experience, but it's always like, the movie wouldn't have happened if you had just listened to the wife in the first place, so, type thing. It was just like an interesting thematic thing that I was like, guys, just listen to your wives, like just don't put yourself through the heartache and the incredibly sketchy situation you're about to do. Just listen to your wife and everything's gonna be fine. At the end though of Miranda's performance, I was like riveted that entire end scene, and I was like, what an interesting movie that was all around. Like when we're talking about like the terrible sex scenes and whatever, it was like, this was like a very erotic film, and I feel like there was hardly any focus on Miranda's character in terms of like sex or whatever. She was like very much like the homebody, the housewife type figure. So she wasn't really sexualized at all in this film, I think.
Right.
I felt like I didn't see the edge that she had the entire movie, but obviously she had some edge if she was like hitting herself like at the end, right? Like she's like, she was so angry and obviously like had all this like passion like pent up in her, and I feel like if her husband had just known that, they could have tapped into that and like made their sex life like way more interesting, and yet found somebody else, this young thing that like they're having all this weird sex, but he could have had all that at home and then his kid would have still been alive, you know what I mean? So I felt like that was a real tragedy right there.
I found for sure that first of all, thank God Juliette Binoche was not nominated for that, because that movie, watching it, because one of my favorite things to do, I like to watch movies because I had never seen this movie before. One thing that I like to do, I don't like to read descriptions about movies or even watch trailers. I like to just watch them and then just sort of see what is going on. And so Juliette Binoche kind of just like shows up at like an industry thing, and they like hardly speak, and then suddenly they're like having this weird like corpse fish flopping on the floor sex where they're not moving at all, and Jeremy Irons is like coming in like 2 seconds, and she was like, yum, let's do that again. And you're like, I don't buy any of this. And I mean, okay, obviously I understand that like they can't have a sex scene go on forever and that's why they come in 2 seconds. Like I understand that's why the movie does that. But what's interesting was that Variety
Yeah.
magazine actually had written that because this film was so famous before it had come out,
Yeah.
and Variety magazine had written that it was unjustly famous before its release for its hardly extraordinary erotic content. And I could not agree more.
Oh yeah, I didn't know about that article, but like definitely, that's an opinion I share. It was very uncomfortable to watch. I
Yeah.
don't think that the BDSM community would sign off on it either. I know
No.
it's
It was just gross.
yeah, and I was like thinking, I was like, is am I missing something here? Am I doing sex wrong? Because like Hollywood seems to have a different idea about how to pleasure people. So it was so strange. For a film that was like mostly based around sex, it was like it could not have been odder for me. It was
And less sexy.
yeah, and less sexy. I wasn't. It was not arousing whatsoever.
Did you notice though how like Jeremy Irons took every opportunity that he could to like smear his dick onto everybody because there was Juliette Binoche, then of course obviously Miranda Richardson, and then when the son died, he ran to him naked
Oh
and
God,
like
yeah.
and like embraced him naked. And it's like, really, Jeremy Irons, your son just died. The last thing that he needs is some Jeremy Irons dick all over him. Like,
No.
yeah, that's just, yeah, putting the nail in the coffin and just that, setting fuel.
Yeah.
That's just a horrible way to go out. Jeremy Iron dick on you.
100%. And it's even worse because whenever I hear his voice, I just think about Scar from Lion King, and that memory is ruined for me now with this movie. So that's not a great thing
Side
for me.
note.
Yeah.
Oh, I agree. No, but did you know, side note? So, like, apparently it's like one of these things. I haven't really done much research about this, but
Mhm.
apparently Scar is like supposed to be like a gay character, but it's like never spoken about.
Oh
It's
my
like implied.
gosh. Why?
Yeah.
Okay, is Jeremy Irons gay himself or
No.
no? No.
No.
Okay. That's interesting that people would make that connection with it not even being a I
A
don't know.
thing, yeah.
Yeah.
I think people read too much into things, absolutely. But like, yeah, that's apparently like and also Ursula, the sea witch, is supposed to also be like a lesbian
Oh, that's
with a big butch haircut.
that's strange. Why would she
Yeah.
marry the prince? Try to marry the prince, and you know what? It's fine. All we need to do a different episode on Disney foibles
Disney
or
movies.
Disney controversies.
Gay controversies. Okay. This episode's been very gay. I love it. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but just, talking about Miranda Richardson,
Mhm.
it's like the way that she sort of transformed from that like, loving wife to
Mhm.
that seething hatred. I mean, she just knocked it out of the park. I think that it was just acted absolutely perfectly, and she maintained the integrity of the character so well. And like, honestly, like she won the British Academy Award, and I fully support that. I thought
Oh God,
that
yeah.
I just thought, and also too because she was in the other nominated movie, Enchanted April. She played like a big part in that. So for this year, they had seen a lot of her range and what she could really do,
Mm.
and so I think that probably contributed to her nomination. She was having a fantastic year, and yeah, no, I thought I thought Miranda Richardson was also, but my favorite Miranda Richardson role is in Sleepy Hollow when she plays the like evil wife. I always wanted to be her, and I was like, oh, I love this bitch.
That's so strange that she was in 2 movies that year or this year that we're talking about, and yeah, that she still wouldn't have been chosen. That's like a real like disappointing Leo DiCaprio moment. That you could just be putting out some good work and then never get the award. Did she ever win? Do you know?
No, she had been nominated for 2 Academy Awards and she had never won. But there are
Mhm.
so many great actors and
Mhm.
actresses like Glenn Close, for example, who have just never won an Oscar. And you're literally like,
Wow.
honestly, these Oscars, they're silly. They're just big bowling trophies. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's
yeah, it's prestige basically, but I'm sure that there's a lot of politics that goes on off screen that we
Oh
don't
yeah.
ever get to see, which is the frustrating part, because it's like I'd like to know in all context what went down. I just want to know the tea. I want the tea to be spilt on the dealings for Academy Awards, because I just feel like it would be an interesting context builder, I
Oh
guess.
yeah, there are so many politics, absolutely, and I mean it is. I think what a lot of people don't realize though about the
Mhm.
Academy Awards is that it is based on votes. It's not
Mm.
like there's this group of 5 or 6 people that are like, you know what, like it's Leo's year. Like it is actually like you have to do a
Mhm.
campaign. People do have to vote. That's why Price
Yeah.
Waterhouse is there to count and to ensure that the correct winner is being awarded with the Oscar.
Mm.
And it's like that really with anything because uh, when I won the Canadian Comedy Award for Best
Mhm.
Breakout Artist,
Mhm.
a lot of people were wondering who was going to win, and
Mhm.
for me, I didn't actually think that I was going to win, but I
Mhm.
put in the work. I reached out to people. I said, "Hey, could you throw me a vote? That'd be great if
Yeah.
you could." Yada yada. But that's what you have to do. And everyone's like, "Oh yeah, because they got like the most amount of people to vote
Yeah.
for them." Blah blah blah. These awards don't mean anything. Yeah, but it's like that with every award, whether it's the Oscars or the Grammys or even the
Yeah.
Canadian Comedy Awards. It's literally you have to get people to vote for you, and then whoever won the campaign
Yeah.
wins the award. It's not like a select group of people that decide like, all right, Kyle's going to win. No, it's just an accumulation of numbers and votes, and that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, that's what you're so right about, like that's the controversy and the reality of all award shows basically, is that I think that people don't win for no reason. I think that there's like all this background work that we don't see, and so when something happens that it conflicts with our own opinions, it's like you're quick to say that person didn't deserve it or whatever, but you weren't part of the process, right? Like you don't know all the work that
Right.
that happened behind the scenes. So I just feel like, you know what, you just got to grind. You just got to hustle. Hustle harder.
100%.
Can't take anything for
100%.
granted these days. You got, like, if you have talent, you have to back it up with some marketing skills, you know what I mean? You can't just ride off talent alone, because that's not going to put food on the table, you know what I mean?
100%.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about Joan Plowright in Enchanted April. See,
Hmm.
this was actually kind of upsetting for me because this was Joan Plowright's only Oscar nomination, and I for some reason thought that she had been nominated for like all of these
Hmm.
performances. But it's funny, when I saw her when I was a kid, I was obsessed with the movie Bringing Down the House, which now looking back is
Mm.
really problematic. But I loved that movie, and she played this like racist old white woman, and when I saw her I was like, "Oh my god, that's the lady from from Bringing Down the House." And I always forget that Miranda Richardson is like this esteemed actress, but she has done a lot of B movies,
Ooh.
even though she's a fantastic actress. So in Enchanted April, she's a high
Yeah.
society fussy old woman. Much to talk, like when I was mentioning earlier about Dame Judi Dench and Shakespeare in Love. Joan Plowright had such presence in this movie, and
Oh
she
yeah.
really owned every single scene that she was in. She was actually not nominated for the British Academy Award for the BAFTA, and I really don't have much to say about this performance. I thought that she acted it extremely well. I don't think it was particularly remarkable, and the fact that she was not nominated for the BAFTA, the British Academy Award, I'm not really that surprised by it. And the thing that I found really interesting about Enchanted April was that there was actually no road up to this castle that they were filming in Italy,
Mm.
but there was like a villa or something across the way with a private elevator that only Joan Plowright could use.
Oh
And I
wow.
thought I love that kind of diva
I love that.
story.
I love that, and it's kind of like true to her character as well in the movie. Is she's she is so fussy in the movie, but she kind of makes it for me. Every scene that she was in, I was like, "Yep, old Joni's." I agree with all of her opinions.
Yes.
Um, I think that there's like, we were talking about the strong force and commanding force in the movies. Like every one of these movies that we saw had somebody who just kind of stole the scene, every scene that they were in, and I think that she was that person in this movie.
Yeah.
Just because, like, I guess the nature of her character is overbearing, and she kind of like demands to be heard in so many ways. And yeah, I love the part uh where I can't remember the main lady's character, but she's inviting her husband to come stay, and they're having that conversation at the dinner table. And she just was like, actually, I have a friend who I'd like to invite, and like tries to like nix
Right.
everyone's plan. But it's just like, I just really love that scene. She's like kind of the matriarch, I guess, of the whole film, I think.
The
What did you
character,
think?
the name
Yeah.
that you were thinking of, it was Lottie.
Lottie. Yes. Lottie. Yes. Sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah, I am. Yeah. What did you think about her presence in this whole thing? And what?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it sort of had that like Downton Abbey feel where it was like extremely well written, extremely well acted. It really did read more like a play than a movie, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And again, these like gorgeous women with these really gross guys
Yeah.
seems to be. There was one guy when the like bathtub like exploded and he was
Yeah.
like one of the workers kind of came in,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh, and then I was like, no, please don't leave, come back, because he was cute.
Yeah.
And you know, I mean, I guess like you shouldn't be hired for an acting role just based on your looks, but when you're looking at the way that the women were cast, it's like, well, let's play tit for tat here, because fair is fair. If you're going to do that to the women, do that to the men too.
100%. Give us all something to look out.
I agree.
Yeah, it was so strange to see the women in these movies, especially Rose. I think Rose's character go back to her husband, I guess, who like, and there was like no repercussions for that guy who was like clearly cheating on his wife with Carolyn.
Yeah.
And like they just keep on their merry way. They like go off into the sunset, back to their normal everyday lives in London, and surely everything was fine after that. Like so many times in these movies, I was like, I want to see the movie after the like what happens afterwards. I want to see the sequel to this, because like this can't how you just like, you know, you can't just like absolve the male characters this way. You know what I mean? Like there's no
Yeah, no,
consequences
100%.
for them, like
Ever.
whatsoever.
But that's also another common theme. The only really, I mean, Jeremy Irons, the consequence was that like he, you know, at the end of Damage,
Yeah,
like
yeah, that's
what,
true.
like disappeared and like became like a recluse. But
Yeah.
I mean, but talking about Joan Plowright, you know, she
Mhm.
won the Golden Globe for the Best Supporting Actress. I think that a lot of people were expecting her to win. It is a bit of a
Mhm.
career Oscar for her because she had been in the industry for so long, since like the
Mhm.
60s. And,
Yeah.
you know, I think that she just acted it so well, but like we were saying, you know, it's like she was such a commanding presence, and I really don't really, I like, if it's okay with you, like we could move on to the final nominee, just
Oh,
because
definitely.
I feel like those are really just my thoughts on the
Yeah, for
performance
sure.
from Joan Plowright. So let us talk about the winner of the Best Supporting Actress in 1993, Marisa Tomei, for My Cousin Vinny. Okay, I am going to be honest with you. I have never seen this movie before. Oh my God, I loved every minute of it.
Oh God,
It
yeah.
was, you know, there's always like movies that are like play like in syndication, or they play like on old channels and stuff. And
Mhm.
listen, as a professional stand-up comedian, I am in hotels all the time in the afternoon. I got nothing to do, so it's like I'll smoke some weed, I'll watch the movie channels that the hotel have. I've
Yeah.
never seen My Cousin Vinny. I've never even heard of this movie before. And
That's so
I think
strange. Yeah.
it's so strange. It was so funny, and I always forget how good Joe Pesci is at comedic acting.
Yeah.
Um, the Karate Kid was in it. I mean, it was just a great cast. Like, I loved this movie. I loved this movie. Talking about Marissa Tomei.
Yeah.
Now, we did talk about this earlier. whoops, sorry. We did talk about this earlier. This Oscar moment haunted her career basically until La La Land. When La La Land,
Mm,
they accidentally, when Faye Dunaway said, "Oh, it's La La Land," but it was
yeah.
actually Moonlight, and Price Waterhouse had to come in to be like, "No, like it was Moonlight," and that sort of showed the world, like, "Ha, you see, like
Mm,
that is the whole point of Price Waterhouse. This is what we do." But what makes me sad about that took like 20 years
mhm,
or like practically 20 years for Marisa Tomei. And at that point, she had already been nominated 2 more times
mhm,
for In the Bedroom in 2001 and for The Wrestler in 2008, both in
mhm.
supporting roles. It just makes me really sad that, people are still, or they were up until that La La Land moment, still having that conversation.
Yeah, I thought that regardless of what you thought about uh whether she should have won or not, you have to concede that like she did some really freaking good acting in that entire movie. She never once broke character. She's like
No,
she was, for me, she was the most interesting character in the entire movie, even more than Joe Pesci. Uh, and I feel
totally
like
agree.
they really those two acted so well together. And even though I thought that obviously Marissa Tomei's character Mona Lisa Vito in that movie could have done like how many times better on the scale of hotness, could have got herself a much
Right.
better looking partner. I actually thought that they had such a good like on-screen chemistry, and out of all the movies, I thought that their relationship, even though like he didn't listen to her in the beginning, I thought that their relationship was actually the best one. Like he ended up listening to her in the end. That's how they won the case, and I
Right.
felt like they really complemented each other. And yeah, I just thought that they as a team they did really well acting together. Um, I, I don't know, like I just thought I was riveted from beginning to end. It was like my favorite movie of all of these to watch from beginning to end. What else?
Well, what
What?
I mean, I don't know about you, but even when she was just in the scene but she wasn't speaking, I couldn't
Mhm.
take my eyes off of her.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
like I was like, "Oh my god, like what is she doing? What is she going to say?" Like I was so interested in her character. Now, I do realize that this was probably more of a like a more
Mhm,
universally accepted sort of movie compared to the other ones, because the other
mhm,
ones were certainly more like bougie and like more like high society, like acting and
oh,
very
definitely.
thespian and stuff like that. But there is something to be said about a comedic performance. And I think comedic acting is one of the hardest things to do. And I will say that um, a lot of people don't take comedic performances very seriously. And comedic acting is,
Oh, it is.
very difficult.
It's such a talent. They say that it's easier for comedic actors to go dramatic than it is for dramatic actors to go comedic. And if you can do
That's
both,
right.
then you are a great actor. So it's
Absolutely.
yeah, I think that it's overlooked. We as stand-up comedians know that comedy is overlooked as a genre across the board. So I feel
Yes.
like yeah, it definitely is a stigma, I guess, of when you think about like a serious performance, like you're not necessarily thinking comedic, because
Yes.
two things don't necessarily go together. But I do think that the point of the story, the whole movie had underlying themes that were, I think, why why the movie, I guess, got considered for awards in the first place, and her performance and like portrayal of that, like I think it was warranted. um I don't know what you think about that, but I'm okay with it. I'm here for it.
I thought that one thing I just picture, okay, she wins the Oscar.
Hmm.
I don't know if you've seen the video, but she genuinely is. She looks surprised, happy, but
Yeah,
surprised.
yeah.
And I think that Miranda Richardson kind of was expecting the Oscar, and
Hmm.
and she looked really surprised too. And I just love the idea of all of these snobby film
Yeah.
critics watching like you know, a more like, first of all, My Cousin Vinny is a movie that like the average person would watch. The average
Mhm.
person is not going to be watching like Enchanted April or Hard's End. It's like that's not the kind of movie that people watch. And I think that this was a bit of a change for the type
Mhm.
of roles that the Academy would you know, put a spotlight on and reward, because I think a lot of people, a lot of America,
Mhm.
like probably hadn't even seen a lot of those movies, like Hard's End, and you know, uh, because My Cousin Vinny, it's a lot more fun, it's a lot more interesting, it's a lot more entertaining, in my opinion.
America. I found it was so funny to see um two parts of America that you wouldn't put together at all, like the New York Bronx
Yeah,
society accent and the and like the deep southern uh part of America. Like those are like two Americas of all of the other Americas that like are seen to be like the low class of America. And to see them interact and interplay in that movie was so interesting to watch because
yeah,
yeah,
I loved it. And
yeah.
one thing that I love so much is, okay, so there was a film critic, Rex Reed, in 1997, who said to Geraldo Rivera that
Mhm.
Palance was so drunk that that's why, you know, he
Yeah.
had said that her name. And then Roger Ebert, the film critic, was so mad at this that he actually got the Academy to issue an official denial to the
Mm,
claim. And I love that. I hate that so many people had to come to her defense. It's just
mm,
what I think personally happened was that everybody was looking at these amazing thespian high society performances
mhm.
that like a classically trained actor would do, and then the actor that won was playing like a out of work hairdresser that was like talking like this and like, hey baby, what's up? And because it wasn't as sophisticated of a
Yeah.
performance, they were like, what? And I love that. I love that she won and everybody hated her for it, because if I
Yeah.
would have won, I would have milked the shit out of that moment.
Oh
I'd
yeah.
be like, yeah, fuck all of you. Like,
Yeah, I love that the underdog won in this particular instance. They really like Kanye'd her though, right? They
yes.
basically yeah, they basically gave her award, but like put a permanent asterisk because when you think of like Taylor Swift, the first thing that comes to mind is like when she got her award and Kanye just like went up there and you know, said what he said, and that was like a career maker and you know an experience that stayed with her for the rest of her career. You know what I mean? It kind of feels the same way
Yeah.
in that it it's I honestly feel like it's I, I don't know what I feel like. I feel like it's wrong to be disparaging anyone's achievements.
Yeah.
Uh you know, just let it be. Like opinions are opinions. Like there's no way to prove like who deserved what more than the other person. I feel like so. I feel like it's like a it was bullying before its time. I don't know if you agree or not.
No, I fully agree with that. And
Mhm.
also at the same time, and it's like the whole thing about this podcast as well is it's like it's just a friggin' statue.
Yeah.
It's like none of this matters. It's all just for fun. And it's like if you have the award, you have the prestige. It's like
Hmm.
you don't need to have an Academy Award to people for people to think that you're a good actor. I
Hmm.
just am obsessed with the idea that somebody is being rewarded over somebody else. And I do feel like it's a personal thing. So the
Hmm.
whole purpose of this podcast is to be like, well, if I could have selected a winner, then I would have picked this person. And I just want to
Hmm.
hear like why they would have selected that person, because I find that interesting, just because really, again, all five of these nominees, they were amazing. Every single one of the performances was great. And it's like there has to be a winner, and that sucks.
Yeah.
So let's get to the final moment then, of who we think that the Oscar should have gone to. So I will allow you to go first.
All right. So I think that the Best Supporting Actress award should have gone to Marisa Tomei, because you know what? I
Yeah.
really freaking love I love an underdog story. Like all of these films were so similar to me in terms of performance. I thought that they were great across the board, but I definitely thought that Marissa Tomei's performance was so different, you know, than of the other characters. I thought that to put on that accent for an entire movie and uh, to stay in that character for the entirety of the film, she did such a good job. I don't think you can take that away from her. I think that yeah, I just think that she deserved it, you know? And I think that it's really great that she had that experience of winning so early in her career. And honestly, I think that she backed it up with her performances, especially in The Wrestler. Like, I remember first seeing her in The Wrestler
Mhm.
before I saw My Cousin Vinny, and I was like, she is such a good actress. I became obsessed with her at that point. I was like, so it's not unfounded that she had won that award in the first place. So I don't, yeah, I just think that I stand by Marissa Tomei. I think that she deserved it. She worked hard for it. And you know what? No one could take that award away from her, okay? She was the best. She was the best. And you guys need to just step in line because you're jealous. You're jealous of her, and I don't like it.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Okay, so all right, well, I'm gonna go ahead. And so I think that in 1993, the Best Supporting Actress Academy Award should have gone to Marissa Tomei. Oh my god. It's like not even
Yes.
it's not like it's a Fritz Bernays. I mean, there's just no question. I literally when I watched this movie again, I had never seen it before. Her performance was so captivating. It was so funny. Every single scene, she nailed the accent. She nailed absolutely like I just don't think that she could have I can't even picture any other actor doing that role.
Yeah.
I remember um I remember Jennifer Lawrence got nominated for Hustle and
American
Flow.
Hustle, yeah. American Hustle, yeah.
American Hustle. Yes, that's right. Sorry. Thank you. And she was almost like playing like a version of who Marissa Tomei
Yeah.
was kind of playing. And I just thought that Marissa Tomei did it like 15,000 times better, where I'm like, oh, like this is what, Jennifer Lawrence should have done.
Yeah.
And like, yes, I agree. Like the role wasn't as meaty, but she friggin' like she wasn't the star of the movie, and I couldn't take my eyes off of her. She was so funny. She was like just such an interesting character, and I loved like her little camera, and like
Yeah.
she really was so memorable to me, and she
She was
stood
so
out the
good.
most.
Yeah, she
To be
stood out
part
the most, and, sorry to interrupt, but, yeah, I just thought that her character in the movie was, like it's kind of like she was supporting her partner, right? Like she was downplaying how brilliant she actually was so that her partner would feel important and all this stuff, right? And I feel like that's like I don't know. I felt that she did such a good job of portraying that, like, the feeling of knowing that you're smart and you have so much to offer, but also like being considerate of other people's emotions and kind of lifting other people up before yourself, type thing. I don't know if you agree with that or not.
Yeah, exactly. Like the supporting role. I
Yeah.
loved it. To be, if I'm being honest, I really thought that Miranda Richardson was a really close tie. I really had I had a difficult time deciding between Miranda Richardson and Marissa Tomei, just because Miranda, just that scene where she had been beating herself and just
Mhm.
her anger, like you could feel her anger. I thought that that was like such an amazing moment, but just as an overall performance, for
Mhm.
me it was Marissa Tomei, and I'm so sad that this moment haunted her career. But you know what, she has a fucking Oscar, and a lot of those other people never will, and so to them.
100%, 100%. We're totally on the same page about the if Marissa Tomei wasn't in the picture, I definitely would have given it to Miranda for just even for that one scene, because I was like clutching my chest that entire time she was giving her monologue at the end of that movie, and
Yeah.
I totally felt her pain over losing her son. And it was like, that's what acting is, you know, you just gotta,
Yes.
you gotta feel the feeling, you gotta feel the emotion. They totally did that. I think those were my top 2 picks as well.
All right, guys, thank you so much for listening to another episode of Best Actress. I want to thank Arianne Tong for being my guest this week. Thank you so much for watching all of these movies and your input. You can check Arianne out at aloha.tong on social media. And again, she is the host of the podcast Group Therapy on ISO Radio. And check out the Instagram because there might be some things happening that could be benefiting people for mental health reasons and maybe earning some, I don't know, some funds. Or is it a fundraiser? Is that what it is?
It could be a fundraiser. I think I'm just going to be doing it out of the goodness of my heart and also boredom during the whole quarantine period that we're going through right now, for my sanity mostly. So that'll be good. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it so much. All right. Well, good luck and stay safe.
Thank you.